Your word is shit, their word is gold. You see, this was, if not the best feedback and the best lesson I've ever learned when it came to sales and communication in general. Reason being is this. Whenever I first got into sales, I was selling timeshare. I was one of the top sales reps for over 6 months, 5-ish months maybe. Quickly when I was there, I learned that it wasn't just my word that made the biggest impact. It was actually what they were telling me that made the most impact. And this one family in particular comes to mind. Whenever it came to timeshare, sophisticated buyers were never the ones to move forward. And that was just the truth of it. Everybody in the office knew if you got somebody with a high credit score and a good background, it typically meant that they were going to be more of a sophisticated buyer, meaning you were going to have a tougher sales conversation. So before that, I was closing deals. But whenever I got, those buyers, I couldn't figure out how I can close those deals. So this one family, this one sophisticated buyer came in, and I ended up closing them for a $40,000 package in one sitting. And the only reason I was able to do that is because by that time, I've just had to be able to understand that their word, what they want, the way they feel, what they see, what they think, those points were all more important than any external validation or reasoning or story or anything that I can give them. And so by that time, when I finally learned that lesson and I sold that one family for $40,000, it really made me realize that, man, my word is shit, their word is gold. And everything that you can say, you can ask in a question. Because at the end of the day, if it does not come from their mouth and it comes from yours, they're always going to judge that internal judgment. Again, more than that external reasoning, validation, or etc. And so allow them to speak their minds and then leverage what they said to the reasoning why you're asking the questions and why you're moving through the conversation the way you're moving. And the best part of it all is that if you do get some pushback, or if you do have to handle an objection, or if you do have to challenge a bit, you then can just simply leverage what they told you, their word, in order to give the context to your questions, give the reasoning to why you're asking that question, simply put. And so now it's not coming from you, it's actually coming from themselves, making it a lot harder to be able to run away from. Be interesting before interested. You see, a lot of salespeople, especially setters and cold callers, assume that they can just jump on any call with anybody, have minimal connection, minimal agenda, and then just start asking a bunch of these questions. And then they wonder why they get pushback. They wonder why people don't give them the answers they want. You see, the reason why setters don't get the answers they want is because they haven't earned it yet. They haven't earned the right to get the answers they want. That's something that came from my mentor, Aaron Seaton. In order to earn the right when it comes to setting, it's about being able to be interesting enough to earn the right to then be interested. What's in it for them, I like to say, when I go into a setting call or a cold call or a DM? What's in it for them? I was working at this telemarketing office doing cold calling for about 6 months when I had to learn this lesson the hard way. As I was cold calling for the first 2 or 3 months, I was terrible, funny enough or not. I did not know how the hell to sell somebody. I was looking around the room like, man, can someone help me? I was on the edge of my seat every single day, assuming I was gonna get fired. But the one thing I kept realizing for some reason, I don't know what the hell was going on, but all of the people who just had a reasoning as into why they're calling, and at that time, it wasn't a good reasoning, but I'll still give you guys the example, don't advise to use it, but they would lead with just simply the pitch. They would lead with just simply like almost bulldozing their way through the conversation. For example, hey, is this John? John, what's going on? Blank name here. I'm just giving you a quick ring because you have this account with us in over 10 years and I just want to make sure you can get on the right plan. I have about 2 years coverage for you. Can you do that right now? It's only $14 per da. It's just word vomit they would do. But they would always somehow sell the deal because even though they were saying all of that, that was what was interesting. That was what the hook was. Now, at the time, you can do that. Nowadays, people are going to assume and already know you're a telemarketer. That's not going to work. But when I learned that, I was like, wait a second. Forget how they ran it, but let me look at the principle that's being displayed. The principle that's being displayed is that if I can just hook these people in, if I can just be interesting, I'll earn the right to keep them on the phone for 5, 10, 15, even 20 minutes for crying out loud. And so how can I figure out how to be interesting without obviously doing that technique that they did to earn the interested card? And with that, I have now been able to find different SOPs and frameworks, which I can be happy to give you guys. But in an essence, you want to make sure that if you are calling these leads, if you're calling these prospects, you're doing it in a way that you are interesting first to then earn the right to be interested. So you don't have to worry about the pushback anymore. You don't have to worry about them getting angry, asking you, why are you asking them those questions, etc. You will be able to flow through the conversation a lot smoother because now there's something that's in it for them. Emotions are in the specifics. And so a lot of you ask yourself sometimes, why can I not find pain? Why can I not find what I'm looking for? Why are my prospects vague with me? You see, I was getting the same reality, the same outcome when I was selling business owners on a B2B social media marketing offer. The ticket prices were upwards of $75,000 to $150,000. And so you can imagine, right? I was dealing with all of the A-type, Andy Elliott, etc., those kind of guys. And I realized I wasn't getting any emotion myself. I wasn't getting any specifics. I wasn't getting the information I needed. Why was that? It wasn't how can I ask better questions? No, it's what am I missing? What am I not identifying? Whenever I asked myself that, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Let me start asking more specific based questions on their business, almost as if I'm poking holes in a balloon. And then just as we go through these holes that I'm poking, we'll both come to a conclusion that there is an obvious gap. And then once I have the obvious problem, which you're all looking for, I can then just leverage that when I go into my emotional based questions. Then I should earn the right, correct? Well, yes. That is exactly my formula, and that's exactly what I'm telling you guys to do here, is if you want to find the emotion, you have to work your way through these specifics first. And the way you do that is just by asking questions of childlike curiosity and really trying to identify where the gap is. Now, this does require you to be an expert in your field, which if you're on an offer, you should be. But if you're not an expert in your field, I highly suggest finish out this video, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, but then go and study your industry. Now, getting back into it. Same thing applies for B2C though. You see, when it comes to B2C is the same way, but a lot of people assume that, no, they're different buyers. Yes, that is correct. When I'm talking to B2C people, consumers, regular 9-to-5ers, I can still poke holes in their life. For example, weight loss. How much do you weigh? How long have you weighed that for? What have you done to fix that weight? How come, what was the disconnect with the things that you've tried? When did you start feeling this? Was it a stack of reasons, or was it just, one big moment that made you, realize you have to do this now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can work my way down their reality by poking these little holes, and I can eventually come to a conclusion with them, so I don't have to explain anything. They almost figure it out themselves, which psychologically, that is a better way of influencing when you can get somebody to realize through the questions you're asking what they're actually going through, because it then becomes their internal judgment, like I said earlier. And so because that's the case, then let us do the same thing with B2C. The emotions lie in the specifics. If you struggle to find the emotion, the pain, whatever it may be, begin to try to get a little bit more specific and then leverage the data you get from the specifics into your challenging, pushback, more hard-hitting questions, because then you have good context to why you're asking those questions and people are more inclined to give you the responses you need. The truth will set you free. This one I just simply thought was obvious every year that I was in sales, to be honest, but for some reason it's just been this really big talk around town. The truth will set you free. What does this actually mean? It means gatekeeping information is Gatekeeping information is not ideal anymore, especially with AI growing and, buyers becoming smarter. Gatekeeping information is a one-way ticket down resistance lane. It's a one-way ticket down pushback lane. Think about it yourself. Why the hell would I sign up for something, get called, ask a question, and then be okay with not just getting an answer back? Like, why can't I just get the answer I'm looking for? It doesn't make any sense to me. And so when our buyers are getting smarter, they're getting more stern as AI progresses and people start to have trust less and less. Why are we going to continue to gatekeep information? Like, honestly, I always thought if I can just be honest with this person about the pricing and they told me that they can't do it, then I've saved myself and my closer some time. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me why I would try to keep them on the phone, not tell them, have them show up to my closer's closing call, not only pissed, but also frustrated that he couldn't get the answer he wanted. And so now he's gonna bug my closer about it and putting him in a bad state of mind. It does no good. And so the truth will set you free essentially means gatekeeping does not work anymore, and it will never work again. Gatekeeping information is a one-way ticket down resistance lane, and if you want better prospects to show up on your closing calls, Be better at being transparent. The meanest thing that they can tell you is no. God, guys, my biggest fear when I got into that cold calling office, like I told you earlier, was the fear of no. It was the fear of pushback. It was the fear of, man, I don't want to piss this person off. And so because I didn't want to piss this person off, I was always scared to give pushback. I was always scared to challenge. I was always scared to keep them on the phone. I would be this guy. Hey, is this a name? Hey, what's going on, name? Jalen here. Yeah, hey, Jalen, I'm busy right now. What's going on? Yeah, no worries. I'll call you back later. I was that guy. And I never knew why I let it bother me so much. But then I had this very simple reframe, and it came from one of my coworkers in that telemarketing office. After those 3 brutal months of not doing anything, they just eventually said, Jalen, because I was a nice guy, Jalen, the meanest thing that they can tell you is no. And so when I thought about that, and I actually sat on that idea and I allowed my brain to literally have a reframe, I was like, man, they're right. The meanest thing they can say is no. Don't get me wrong. I've definitely gotten the kill yourselves, the fuck offs, the screw offs, excuse my language. I've gotten all of those too. But at an essence, the meanest thing they're gonna tell you is no. And so once I realized that, I was like, okay, so then why wouldn't I just push and see what happens? I'm still going to be alive. I'm still going to be okay. I'm still going to be in this telemarketing office dialing 300 plus leads at the end of the day. Let me just push and try to get it done with a better process and having a better day and getting more sales. And so the meanest thing they can say is no. Stop letting rejection be the thing that stops you from closing and collecting cash. Have the realization that at the end of the day, you're in sales. And so if you're in sales, you have to see rejection as almost a door to opportunity, because rejection is just one of the names of the game when it comes to sales. You're going to be getting rejected 24/7. But once you have it as a thing of opportunity, once you see it as a door to the future reality that you're looking for, you actually want the no's a lot faster. You almost itch for the no's. And that's a very fun place to be, because then sales isn't a dreadful thing anymore. It almost becomes a game. How many no's can I get? At the end of the day, reminding yourself, if you're cold calling or doing any form of setting where you just feel like, man, I hate getting rejected, I hate being told no, just realize the meanest thing they can say is no. And the nicest thing you can do is hold them to the standard that they want to be held at, but in reality, they can't see it because they're too stuck in that comfortable state. The call starts before you dial. Whenever I was setting for Ashton Hall, one of the biggest influencers in the game, one thing that I always caught myself doing, which I know a lot of you have as well, is as the phone would be ringing when I was, calling a lead, in the back of my head, I was almost telling myself, man, I hope they don't answer right now. And that same energy was the energy I was moving like when I was actually on the call, more so the intro. And so I was wondering why I would lose calls, or why I would, almost dread the day, or why some days I feel like I wouldn't be as quality going through the intro. It's because I would always start my calls in this weak foundation. I would always allow my brain to tell myself and play tricks on me, like, hey, you don't want to be here, like, you don't want them to answer, what if they say, no, like the whole rejection thing. And in reality, the call starts before you dial, because if you're not in the good wavelength, if you're not in a good train of thought, you're going to be moving like that. But if you can start the call before the call even starts by getting in that mindset, priming that brain, then once you flow into the conversation, it's a lot easier, and it allows for a smoother, easier transition with positive energy. And so the call starts before you dial. With all of that being said, guys, if you can implement those 5 rules, not only into your setting process, but your day-to-day, you will inevitably become better at communication. Your word is shit, and their word is gold.